All right, and we are broadcasting live. Welcome to Phil's First Party Parlay, where we talk all things timely and topical in the insurance restoration industry. I'm Phil Sanoff, trial lawyer with Morgan & Morgan's Insurance Recovery Group. With Morgan & Morgan's Insurance Recovery Group, I have got 55 of the most awesome attorney colleagues you would ever want to know. We are in 25 offices, 13 states, all across the country. If you have any problem with any insurance claim, you need to come see us. You can reach us through our website, forthepeople.com, hit pound LAW from any cell phone, or just call me direct. My cell phone is 713-825-3444. Call me, we'll figure out whether we can help you. Morgan & Morgan's Insurance Recovery Group. Come see us. Joining me on the show tonight is one of those awesome attorney colleague friends of mine, Tommy Shea. Tommy, thank you for coming to visit with us this evening.
Thanks for having me, Phil.
You bet, you bet. So one of the things that I like to introduce folks about Tommy is Tommy not only spent several years, thankfully, doing defense work representing insurance companies on first party claims in order to understand some of the inner workings of how insurance companies look at claims and how to posture claims now to help policyholders. Tommy, you got to tell the story. Tommy also worked for insurance companies when he was in high school. He was in high school and got an insurance license. Tommy, tell us that story. I just think that's great stuff.
Started a long time ago. I think I was end of 10th grade, beginning of 11th grade, and I started working at a title insurance company doing, I was a systems administrator, network administrator. We had offices in a few different cities in northern Florida, and that kind of got me into the insurance industry. I ended up getting an insurance license using, that to pay my way through college and eventually law school. And thought I wanted to be a real estate lawyer. When I graduated law school, it was kind of bad timing and wasn't a whole lot of real estate work because it was right when, the bubble, I guess, so to speak, burst.
Right.
And so ended up, starting with some plaintiffs class action work and eventually led to defense work, like you mentioned. And, now all I do is represent policyholders.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I really appreciate when that type of background comes into play to help the policyholders. Having done that kind of work for the insurance company just really helps you be able to focus on what to do and how to do it to give the right type of perception to the insurance company. That's just fantastic, fantastic experience for our clients.
Absolutely. You learn what's important and what's, not really important and kind of how they work. So very valuable.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, Tommy, I think you know a little bit about how the parlay works. Like you, I'm a trial lawyer, and as such, I believe in the power of three, the magic of three. And so we try to take folks to have three topics, three main points to discuss for our viewers, for the folks that are going to see this video on various YouTube channels. For the People is the primary YouTube channel. Then it will be, the audio will come out and be put on a few podcasting platforms. So folks are going to be seeing this and hearing this. We're going to give them the 3 points that are your main topics to give a forecast on where we're going. Then we'll come back and take those one by one and let you expand and explain what your thoughts are on those topics. You ready to go?
Ready.
All right, brother. Tell us what is going to be the first topic that you're going to talk about this evening.
So first is just very generally, what I do day to day and kind of the litigation process, really focused on first party insurance claims.
Okay, so that'll be point number one. Then when we wrap a bow on that one, what are you taking us to for point two?
Well, a large part of what I do is help policyholders with plumbing claims or water damage claims that come from plumbing systems. So we see a lot of reoccurring issues with those types of cases. So I'm going to talk about a few of the common, coverage issues and defense arguments that we see with those types of cases.
Fantastic. That's going to be very valuable for all the folks that hear and see this coming up after this. So then your third point, I think, is my favorite point. Tell us what your third point's going to be before you take us home.
third point, pretty simple one, is just how we can help you as a policyholder. So
Fantastic.
Value that our firm can add.
All right. Well, now that we've got that forecast laid out for folks, let's dive right in. Before we do, let me say we've got a few attendees. Attendees, if you have a question or comment for Tommy, you can either do the electronic way of raising your hand, where if you click on your name, it's an electronic raising of your hand, or just type a question in the chat. I will also be monitoring the chat. Tommy, you don't need to worry about doing that. You can just focus on presenting the content. I will monitor the hand raising possibility and the chat in case there's some participation from the attendees this evening. So with that, we're ready to start. Please talk to us about your first point, Tommy.
Well, first point, what I do generally, I help policyholders and, policyholders, homeowners, businesses, condo associations, even anyone that's, had a problem with their insurance company. Insurance claims have been underpaid or denied, a number of different issues that come up. And, I mentioned a moment ago, a large part of my practice now is dealing specifically with water loss claims that originate from plumbing systems. So all the cases I deal with are cases that are in the litigation stage, we call it. So, policyholders come to me after they already have a decision from their insurance company. I'm able to look at that, make a determination as to whether we, believe that there was something improper that was done, if the, claim was underpaid or improperly denied, or a number of different issues. And, we can help hopefully get, the full value of the claim that the policyholder should have gotten from the beginning. So, like I said, all my cases are in litigation, and first party cases are kind of a unique animal. Most lawsuits, they all kind of follow the same track, but have a lot of different, every case is different facts and, different issues, different causes of action. But for first party insurance claims, they're unique because there's a statute in Florida that provides policyholders in a dispute with their insurance company the ability to recover attorney's fees if they prevail in their dispute, in their lawsuit. And the dispute actually doesn't have to be a lawsuit. There's other ways, but for the most part, the first party statute is unique because it's a one-way fee shifting statute. So a homeowner, if they feel like they've been treated improperly or their claim decision is wrong, if we file a lawsuit and prevail, they can recover attorney's fees and they're not out of pocket anything. But if they, don't prevail on the claim, there's very little to no risk for the policyholder. It's not a situation where if they lose, the homeowner or the policyholder is typically, now on the hook for paying the insurance company. So that's kind of a policy issue in Florida because, if there's disputes about coverage or, there's kind of gray areas where, it's not clear whether a claim should be covered or not covered, these statutes are in place to kind of give the insurance companies some incentive to really, do the right thing. And I heard an adjuster say the other day, if it's gray, we pay. I mean, if it's in a gray area, where it could be covered, might not be covered, they pay the claim, which was ironic because that claim was denied when the adjuster was talking about this being a great claim. But yeah, so that's a general overview of kind of what I do, the types of cases that I work on. And like I said, specifically the plumbing water loss cases, we'll talk a little bit more about those in a second.
Well, let me back up a second.
Sure.
You Tommy, too, because that brought up a great point. We've all had folks that we've talked to about they're unsure about their claim. They don't know about hiring a lawyer. Hiring a lawyer is expensive. You've touched on it, but let's be a little more specific for folks that are going to see this video later, folks that are going to hear this on a podcasting platform. When you say there's no risk at all, talk about that a little bit to help folks understand that when they can't pay for a lawyer, that's the whole purpose behind the way that we do our work and the way the reasoning behind the fee shifting statute. Be a little more specific with folks that might be seeing this so that they understand what you mean when you say there's no risk to them to come hire you.
Sure. And well, so a lot of people, I'm sure, think that, if they have some kind of dispute where they need to hire a lawyer, well, some people may be able to afford that, and a lot of people can't. A lot of people can't afford, the high hourly rates. I mean, doing defense work, we bill by the hour. We charge the clients for every 6 minutes of our time. There's a lot of people that couldn't afford to pay that. And so, those people still, if they've been treated improperly or their claim hasn't been handled properly, they deserve a just result just like anyone else, whether they can afford to pay for it or not. So people in that situation, just because you may not have the money to pay a big retainer or pay hourly fees, the statute is in place where they can hire someone like us. We work on a contingency fee basis where, if we either contingency fee or if we prevail in some situations, a court would award our attorney's fees, reimbursement for that. But the point is, it doesn't cost the policyholder any money out of pocket up front. They don't have to pay us anything to handle the case. There's no cost for hiring experts, nothing like that. We take the case, we work on the case, and when the time comes where we either go to a trial and prevail or we settle, we're paid in the back end, and the policyholder doesn't have to pay anything out of pocket.
Now, Tommy, if we had some policyholders watching this, we've got a few attendees. Again, if you have any questions, please do the electronic hand raise or type the question in the chat. We'll pull you in. Tommy, when folks are seeing this or hearing this later on the repurposing, what if they bring a case to you, you get into it, and then something's discovered, and you believe in your heart that this is just not a case that should go forward? What do these folks owe you at that point?
Well, still nothing. So that's a risk that we take. It's a risk that we take. We spend the time to evaluate the case, try and make an objective decision. And, listen, not every case is perfect. There's cases that unfortunately there's, not things that we can do to help the policyholders. We'll do our best to try and figure out a way. But sometimes we can't. So in that situation, we don't charge the policyholder costs or, try and recover the time spent or anything like that. It's essentially a cost of doing business to us.
I always say it like that. That's our risk of doing business, the cost of doing business. It's not going to hurt them if we get in and we find out they really don't have a claim.
Right.
So I think that we've covered all of your background for the first point. Is there anything that you want to talk about in addition on that point before we move into your second point to discuss this evening?
No, I think that covers it. We can probably launch into a little bit more specific topic.
Okay. We're going to transition into number two. Let's hear from you, Tommy.
All right. So number two, I mentioned, my practice includes in large part water loss claims that originate from plumbing systems. And the majority of those cases are drain plumbing systems, people that have homes built before 1975. They have cast iron drain systems in the home. And, when they were built, they may have worked okay, but over time, these systems eventually fail. And, it's a pretty bad situation because, these pipes are typically in your foundation and it's hidden from view. It's not something that homeowners look at every day. So you don't really know that there's something wrong in your house. And we see a lot of cases where, people will start having water back up into their, house from all different drains at one time, or toilets overflow, or all kinds of things that no one wants to happen in their house. Water will start coming out from walls sometimes when, they run their sink, just crazy things. And you do a little investigation and find out, well, this cast iron drain pipe that has been in the home for years and years has eventually worn out, rusted out. There might be cracks, there might be holes, a number of different things that we've seen. We've seen pipes break and shift, and now there's a blockage, and so water can't flow down the pipes. So these all create pretty significant water losses, usually at homes. And so, homeowners will report claims for that, and we see the insurance companies make kind of the same arguments or recurring arguments in a lot of these cases. And, one of the go-to arguments right away that we see a lot of denials that just say, well, this is all just a maintenance issue. So all the things you're complaining about are maintenance issues. These are just, 50, 60-year-old pipes, they're worn out. That's not our problem. And it's not quite that simple. Okay. There's, in insurance policies, there's typically exclusions that say, we don't cover loss that, is caused by wear and tear, rust, corrosion, deterioration. So the insurance companies usually send a denial letter and they'll stop there. But they omit language right after that language that
I was just going to take you there, Tommy. What is typically in the cases that we work on like this with cast iron pipe? What is typically the one exception to the exclusion that puts a little bit of coverage back for us?
So right below all those exclusions the insurance companies love to quote is an exception that says, however, if any of these excluded items, wear and tear, rust, corrosion, deterioration, all the things that are usually happening, if any of those things cause a plumbing system to fail that results in water damage, then there's coverage that's provided for the cost to access this plumbing system so that it can be repaired. And it makes sense because, if you have a pipe in a wall that all of a sudden has a hole in it, even if that pipe itself is not covered, you as the homeowner, you have coverage to at least gain access to that pipe so that you can fix it and your house doesn't continue to be damaged by whatever this problem is, the worn out pipe or the failed pipe. And so sometimes that's a very easy fix. You got a pipe that breaks in a wall where you can access it by cutting out a little drywall, not a big deal. But a lot of these drain pipe claims, the cast iron pipe claims, people have slab foundations, the pipes are buried under concrete, so you have to actually break into concrete to get access to these pipes to fix the issues that keep causing water damage in the home. So it ends up being a very significant cost. But that's one of the things we see quite a bit are these denial letters that just say it's all maintenance, it's all wear and tear. And the point is, it's not quite that simple. So if you have something like that, don't just take the insurance company's word that that's the end of the road for you, because there's usually some ways to get around that language and show why it doesn't apply the way that the insurance company says it applies. Another thing that we see pretty regularly are insurance companies that try and argue that your coverage is limited. So they'll concede, fine, all right, you've got water damage in your home, we cover that, we agree it's from this drain system that's failed, but all you get is $10,000 because your policy has a water damage endorsement that limits allegedly coverage to $10,000. And so we see that a lot. And again, it's not that simple. Typically, the endorsements only limit part of the coverage that applies to your claim. The tear out costs are typically not included in that $10,000 limitation. So if you've received a letter like that that says $10,000 is your best day, that's all you get, let us look at it and we may be able to help. There's a lot of ways where we can show that that limitation does not apply to these tear out costs, which are very, very significant parts of these claims.
And so first of all, the wear and tear that the insurance company cites is this is the wear and tear that is actually written back into the policy to give you some give back coverage for that wear and tear deterioration. And the exclusion that the limit that they're trying to apply doesn't apply to the very tear out coverage that they've written back into the policy for you.
Correct. And in some policies, this does vary from policy to policy, but even in some policies, we've seen there's tear out coverage provided in multiple areas of the policy. So the insurance company's written a form that may limit one portion of the policy, but it doesn't address other portions of the policy. So there's a number of ways that you can show that these limitations don't apply the way that the insurance company says they apply.
So the true lesson is, if you've had a claim like this, if you're out there and you're hearing and seeing you now, if you've gotten one of those letters that says either it's excluded for wear and tear or you've got this $10,000 limit, if they've said no, if they've been slow, if they have been low on their payment, then that's something that they should bring to you for a second look, because there are actually other sides of that story.
Absolutely.
All right.
They're very expensive claims, so it's very common to see an insurance company come in and they either say it's under the deductible or one way or another they just ignore these tear out costs.
Got it. Well, I appreciate that we've covered the common exclusions and start educating people on what they should look for and bring to you. I think that is a nice transition into point number 3. Why us? Why you? What is it that we can bring to the table that you can bring to the table for folks to be able to look to Tommy Shea to help them with these claims?
Sure. So, how can we help? I mean, the first thing I would say is our entire practice, or at least in our group here, is focused on insurance coverage litigation. You know, I'm not a lawyer that does, 20% insurance coverage litigation and 20% personal injury and then 20% product liability. All we do is focus on litigating these insurance coverage issues, people that have property damage claims. So, and there's, like you mentioned in the beginning, we've got, over 50 lawyers, very, very good lawyers, that all we do is this type of work. So, a lot of people, you go to another lawyer that might do 15 different practice areas, and I don't think you're going to get the focus and the knowledge that you would get with our group. So, that I think is very, very important.
I like to say all day, every day, just bring us your insurance claims. We'll work on it and figure it out.
Absolutely. And, with these types of cases, you're going up against insurance companies that have very deep pockets, endless resources. And so it's important to have lawyers that actually try cases. So a lot of people that do this kind of work, they don't, follow the case through all the way to the end. You wait for the last best offer from the insurance company, and that's it. And the insurance companies know that. They know the people that will always settle the case and the people that will try the case if you don't make a fair offer. And so we're one of the firms that will follow it through to the end. Arc Nation, double board certified. We've got lots of board certified lawyers that, try cases regularly. And so that's also very important. I mean, we're a firm that has a lot of decisions that have shaped, this area of the law. So, it's nice when you can go to a hearing and argue a case to a judge, hand the case to the judge, and also point out that, we're the firm that actually had that issue on appeal. This is our opinion. It's compelling, I think. So,
we made this law, Your Honor. Let me explain to you what I meant when the judge gave me this order. Right.
Absolutely. So, and then we touched on it earlier, but it's important, I think, just to mention again that there's no fees and no costs up front. I mean, these cases they're relatively simple issues in terms of, you're talking about a breach of contract claim. I mean, it's not very complicated from the beginning, but they can get complicated quick depending on what the issues are. And there's a lot of experts that are needed. The cost can get pretty high pretty quick to prepare one of these cases the way it needs to be prepared to get the right type of recovery. So again, going back to no costs up front, I mean, that's, I think, important for that reason. We know the right experts, we know what needs to be done, we handle all that, and that's how you get the best result.
I always say simple and straightforward don't mean easy. So
right.
It may be straightforward issues and should be simple stuff. If it was easy, anybody could do it. And we're the ones to come help it. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. Thank you for making sure to point that out.
Absolutely.
Tommy, we have gotten a lot of great content here. I'm grateful to you for coming and sharing this. I always open the show with giving the contact information, how to get in touch with us. My wife laughs at me, but I do always give my cell phone out on the internet. Yay me. How would folks go about getting in touch with you that see this or hear this later and say, I got to get to that guy, Tommy Shea?
Sure. Well, I'll give you my email, office line, and cell phone. How's that?
That works. Thank you, brother.
Email is my first initial last name. So TSHEA at nationlaw.com, nationlaw.com. My office line is 321-388-9851. That's a direct line to me.
Slow down, you're going too fast. People trying to write these numbers down. Tell us that number again.
Sure, 321-388-9851.
All right. And what's the last best way to get in touch with you, friend?
Last but not least, cell phone 352-514-0239.
All right. And we've had a few folks on here with @Nation Law email addresses. Nation Law and Morgan & Morgan, it's all we are they are we. As far as the insurance recovery group, we're all one big group with all the best lawyers that go forward on this. That's the way I've always tried to explain it. Does that work for you?
I think that's fair.
Okay, great. So that is going to be a wrap for another edition of Phil's First Party Parlay. again, where we talk all things timely and topical in the insurance restoration industry. We are grateful for folks being here. We're grateful for you, Tommy. And we're going to sign off this evening, and we'll see y'all next time.
All right. Thanks for having me, Phil.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, sir.